In just 15 days, Manatee voters will vote on two measures that would impact them for the next 15 years. There's the half-cent surtax for public infrastructure. Most of that, $30 million, would go toward transportation issues. The second measure is an extension of the half-cent sales tax for the school district. Another $30 million would help build new schools and renovate existing ones. So why support these or oppose these? Tonight's discussion now involves Ed Goff, manager of OurManatee.com. In the middle is Mac Carraway and John Horn, who both serve on Forward Manatee. Thank you all for being here.
Thanks for having us.
I'll lob you a softball. Why are you for it?
I'll just indicate that I was part of the Citizens Financial Structure Advisory Board that the County Commission put together back in October of 2015. And that was a number of citizens, all of whom came in to take a look at the county's financial situation and see what the needs were and if there was a need for additional revenue. And I think we sort of took a skeptical approach to that. But at the end of the day, we saw a tremendous need for infrastructure repair, replacement, and we saw that the county didn't really have a sustainable financial platform to do that. We looked at a number of different financial sources and decided unanimously, which was rewarding coming out of that particular committee, unanimously to support the half-cent sales tax because of its being shared with visitors. It provides an opportunity to be able to do those projects immediately. It's bondable, and it's relatively inexpensive to the citizens on a pay-as-you-go basis.
So when you first went into this exercise, you didn't have a horse in the race, and upon closer inspection, you decided it was needed?
That's correct. I mean, it was a diverse group of citizens, and in fact, my concern was going into that is that how are we going to be able to sort of manage the outcome? Were we going to have sort of a dissenting opinion or a minority opinion? But at the end of the day, the data that we looked at, the homework that we did on the county's budget and financial structure compelled us to say that this was something that was needed and needed really yesterday.
Anything quick to add before I go to Ed?
Well, people have asked me that question quite often. Why am I involved, especially supporting the school board with no children in school? We don't have any children. And it's similar to my guests. They ask the same question, but it's to continue the quality of life in Manatee County. The school produces a great product. We want a good product coming out. We want students that are smart students, that are ready for college or ready for the workforce. All
right, Ed, your turn. Why are you against two half-penny sales tax increases in Manatee County?
Well, it's a matter of trust. The school board or the school district and the county have not been very good fiscal managers. They have not spent their money well. It is what they're asking is too much. This is $1 billion question that we have.
Over time, you mean?
Over 15 years, it's over $1 billion. I don't agree that the committee that was decided this was an impartial committee. Half of it was chosen by the commissioners, and the other half were business people. There were not very many ordinary people on it, like myself, and I'm not convinced that the money would be spent well. I think before we vote on anything like this, or before we approve on anything like this, we need to have some terms that we agree to that won't be crossed over. For example, the county and the school board have both not collected 100% impact fees since 2008. In 2009, they both schools suspended a collection of impact fees, and that went for over 7 years, almost 8 years. And the counties reduced impact fees, and if we had all that money now, we wouldn't be in this situation that we are in now.
You realize that was during the depths of the recession.
Well, I don't agree that, why should you hurt the county for the developers? You know, I know the developers weren't building very many houses, therefore the impact fees wouldn't be very much. So the opinion around the county is that the developers control the county. They control the school board, they control the board of commissioners, they control the planning commission, and it's just, there's just a lack of trust. Until we can get that trust, I don't think people are going to be prone to approve $1 billion tax. When you think about it, a 5-year-old person today will be 20 years old when that tax ends.
All right, you've laid out why you're for it, why you're against it. We've just scratched the surface so far. We'll take a quick break right now to have much more on our roundtable after this. Welcome back. We're talking tonight about two plans in Manatee County to raise the sales tax, half-penny for schools and also half-penny for the county. On one side, against it, is Ed Goff, manager of OurManatee.com. On the other side, for it, is Mac Caraway in the middle and John Horn, who are both involved with Forward Manatee. So before the break, gentlemen, Ed had lobbed some allegations, including that the Citizens Committee that took a closer look at this wasn't just made of citizens.
You know, I think I would like to speak to that. I think my sense of it was that we had a very diverse group in there, those selected by commissioners and those representing business organizations who represent a lot of regular, normal people in the county. And we also operated in the sunshine, so there was an opportunity for citizens through public notice to come to these meetings, which occurred over a 4.5-month period. And Ed never appeared at any of those meetings, but we did have some public comment. So we had opportunities to hear some of the things that Ed's talking about. We had the opportunity to consider pushing this down the road a year. But very clearly, when we came out of this, based on the study that we did, again, we were compelled based on the need for these infrastructure projects, which, by the way, cannot be paid with impact fees. The infrastructure projects that the county now has posted on mymanatee.org/half-cent, you could have impact fees as high as you wanted them. You could not use them for those projects.
Ed, you understand impact fees?
Yeah, I understand that. He's exactly right, but it's not true the other way around. The tax money can be used to pay for infrastructure that would normally be paid by impact fees. So if the impact fees are not paid by the developer, then it has to be tax money that has to pay that, and that's not fair.
But these are existing assets that have been around for a long time that have been in substantial need of repair, or their needs of the sheriff, the constitutional officers, the project managers within the county, things that they need that they haven't been able to get.
So for those who are watching, one second, John, impact fees is not a phrase everybody knows. When a developer builds a house, they also have to pay a certain percent to the county or the city, wherever they are, an impact fee paying for growth. And that's being debated right now as to can that money be used toward the schools or the county infrastructure? And that's being discussed right now. You were going to say?
Yeah, it cannot be used for new growth. Impact fees are only for new growth. It cannot be used for maintenance of other. So when the school district stopped collecting impact fees, they had no new growth, no new buildings on the books, on their project list. Declining rates of attendance, I mean, the number of people going to school, student rates were dropping, and so there was no new buildings on the books. There hasn't been a new school built in 7 years. The first sales tax was used to build 18 schools, 11 new and remodeled 7. So that's what was used for the first, and that's what will be used with the continuation to continue to improve those schools.
Well, it's not just buildings. There's other things, other capital expenditures that can be used for, and which it was used for. New school buses, we have a lot more students now than we did before. We have to have more school buses. There are other facilities that had to be built. They built a new garage to maintain the school buses. It's not just buildings. And trust me, there was money used that didn't come from impact fees because there wasn't impact fees that could have been used for new development, new structures required because of new development. And that's why we don't have a high school that we need right now, because no money was collected. And the money could have been saved and used later on. It could have been used to buy land for the new school. It was obvious that a new school was going to be needed, and they didn't collect it.
You cannot collect impact fees unless you have something on your project list. And you can't put it away for a rainy day either. You have to spend it.
I think he's referring, Ed, to back in 2008 when there wasn't a lot of projects going on, and they reduced the impact fees to try to encourage some projects.
Right.
They didn't just reduce the impact fees, they suspended them completely. They didn't collect any impact fees for almost 8 years. And now they don't have any money and they need new schools. And Sarasota collects impact fees, and they have this first in, first out. They collect them for 5 years. So I don't know why we couldn't be doing the same thing. We could have used it to buy land at least. Right now, we don't even have any land for a new high school.
So, Mac, Ed believes, if I could speak for you, that he could go through the budget with a fine-tooth comb and find tens of millions of dollars that's being wasted. Am I accurate?
Not necessarily wasted, but I think not used appropriately.
True?
I really don't think so. We spent a lot of time on that budget over a 4.5-month period. We found the budget process in the county to be extremely rigorous, that we were seeing over and over again during the budget process that bread and butter projects were having to compete against one another and often were eliminated from the budget simply because there were insufficient resources to do that. Our consensus opinion coming out of those meetings was that the county and its managers had done an extremely good job of doing more with less, and that the needs for these infrastructure projects had become so great that it's become an issue of competition in the budget process.
Now, Ed, Manatee County is lucky enough to have such beautiful beaches and countless tourists every year. Wouldn't it be a resourceful idea to increase the sales tax and have the tourists paying about a third of this nut?
Well, I don't agree with that third. I don't know where they got that. I'd like to know where they got that number. I doubt that it's a third. Before, on the promise they made before, that was done in 2002. The developers sponsored this one also, and they're sponsoring this effort now. And excuse me, they've collected $300,000 to promote these taxes, and you say they don't, they don't really care about it at all. They're not involved. They are. They're very involved. Excuse me. I think I'm losing my voice. But this was a promise they made. It's on our website. It said, one of the things they said was they were going to get rid of all the portables. There were 57 of them now. Now there's over 157. Now there's over 200. I mean, they didn't keep their promise. Why should we expect they're going to keep their promise now?
John, first off, Ed questions the 1/3. When we're talking about the sales tax. And you've got lots of tourists who come through and spend money at 7-Eleven and whatever else,
right,
and at your restaurants as well.
Thank goodness.
And about a third of the $30 million raised, or about $10 million a year,
right,
will come from those passing through the county on vacation.
Right. For a weekend stay, a week stay, 4-month stay. They've got data that shows how much is spent by tourists in our area.
So Ed's questioning that 1/3, and you think it's accurate?
Absolutely, absolutely accurate.
I agree. That was information that we received from the county's financial folks, and have no reason to disagree with it. But if it were 25%, would that make me feel any different? Not really. I mean, that's a significant discount, and we can't ignore that opportunity to really to do something that gives us some diversity in our financial system that would allow the county to have a sustainable financial structure.
Now, Ed, approving this would bring Manatee County in line with neighboring counties, not more than, but the same as Sarasota, Hillsborough, Pinellas, Charlotte.
Yeah.
So doesn't that make sense to be in line?
I think the tax could really do a lot for the county, but I don't think it would be spent wisely. I think there needs to be some conditions on it, such as I think it needs to be 100% tied in with 100% collection of impact fees. And I think the term is way too long. 15 years is too long. I would say 6 years would be the maximum. And at the end of 6 years, we could vote on it again. If the county's doing what they're supposed to, we can approve it again. If they're not, we would say, no, you're going to have to fix these things.
Impact fees are going to graduate to 100% in 18 months?
Absolutely, for both the county and the school district. The county's already at 80%, the school's at 50%. In 1 year, 75% and 90%, and in 18 months, they'll both be at 100%.
Mac, with so many retirees in Manatee County, is it difficult to convince them to invest in the future of Manatee County?
Sure, it can be. I think John's raised that question too. If you don't have children in the system, is that something that you're really interested in financing? But I think the overriding interest is that we want strong students to be the employees, the people that are the future of this county. I think the people that visit here really take an equity stake in this county. They're not just here to exploit their opportunity here. They're here because they love Manatee County. And we really believe, and Forward Manatee's whole concept is based on the idea that this is what's in the best interest of the quality of life for everybody in Manatee County, whether it's retirees or those just starting their careers here.
And it's not just us. The Manatee Chamber of Commerce has backed both of these referenda, Lakewood Ranch Business Alliance, the Board of Realtors, the Economic Development. Everybody wants a better community, and starting with better infrastructure and better schools is the best way to have the best community.
Ed, off the top, you referenced a lack of trust. You
Yes.
felt that the schools haven't spent well in the past. Do you have any examples you could cite on that?
Well, just the fact that they didn't collect impact fees. If they had collected them, then we wouldn't be in this situation that we're in right now. And I just don't agree that we should be taking money away from our schools, from our students. I mean, I was a teacher for 40 years. I know how important money is. I spent a lot of money out of my own pocket to furnish my classroom, and to take millions, $100 million is how much the school gave up since the beginning of 2009. That's a lot of money. That could have done a lot of good. And I know that the impact fees can't be used for the school, but if money that was used for infrastructure, it had to be taken from someplace. It had to come from someplace. And the same, we're not just the schools, we're talking about the county. We're talking about the county. What about the 44th Avenue extension? That was supposed to be 100% impact fees. Now they're talking about taking some of that money out of the sales tax for that road. What,
If impact fees didn't exist, just for a moment, let's pretend there is no such thing as impact fees. Would you rather vote for a half-penny sales tax or raise property taxes?
I would have to consider both. I want to see property taxes go up, but at the same time, the state passed this Impact Fee Act because it helped. It was for a reason, and that was because it was hurting communities not to collect it. But our community, our elected officials did not support the people. They didn't collect it when they should have, and now we're in a big bind, and now they want to raise the taxes.
Are you talking about during 08, 09, and 10?
That was a hard time. But what about 11, 12, 13? In 2011, the schools were not collecting any impact fees, and they were selling bonds. They sold one bond worth just under $40 million, and they're paying huge. They haven't paid any interest on it yet. They haven't paid any principal on it. They're only paying interest, and they're going to start pretty soon. So that's a bad investment.
All right, quick break right now. When we come back, some final thoughts on this very contentious issue. Stay with us. So it's not just candidates and amendments, it's voters in Manatee County deciding the fate of two proposed half-cent sales taxes in 2 weeks, one for the school district and the other for the county. Some final thoughts, and I will start, Mac, with you.
When we were in the Citizens Financial Structure Advisory Committee, we looked at some of Ed's concerns, and we appreciate those well-intentioned concerns about accountability. And one of the things we insisted on was accountability. The county has already passed an ordinance to ensure that we have an independent Citizens Advisory Committee, which is a huge step to ensure that that trust is going to be there. I firmly believe that citizens are in charge this time, that we've learned our lessons from the past, that we've looked at the sources and purposes of funds to be spent, that this is the best possible outcome and the best possible time to do this.
And John, also in support?
Absolutely. The school will have the same citizens oversight committee. They'll watch every dollar spent. They'll make sure they hold them to the thing. This tax, if it continues, it only accounts for $5 a month for the average family in Manatee County, $60 a year. But if we don't continue it, if we don't pass it, it'll take a $30 million hit to the school district.
Yeah, because again, this is $30 million for schools and $30 million for the county
Right.
for 15 years.
Right.
Your turn to end things.
First, I'd like to correct that. $5 is not correct. I did the math, and as a math teacher, I can tell you it works out to be about $800 a year per family. And I don't think, for the poor people in the county, that is really, really a hardship. And we're talking about $1 billion over a 15-year period. That is just too long a period. In fact, about impact fees, the Brookings Institute, a very well-known organization that does reports on financial things for governments, says that impact fees are actually good for a community. They actually, communities that collect impact fees prosper more than those that don't. And I'd like to also know about the committee. How many women were there on that committee, and how many teachers were there on that committee, since we're talking about that? And also, I'd like to finish up by just saying, in order to gain our trust, and I think I speak for many, many people in Manatee County, we need 100% impact fees. We need no longer than a 6-year term for the tax, and then it can be voted on every 6 years. And then we need an external audit of all of the tax money every year.
All right, good shots, all three of you. Thank you. Now some comments right now on Friday's topic on community policing. Law enforcement across the Suncoast trying to build trust with the public. Programs such as Walking the Beat and Coffee with a Cop are getting officers out of their cars and talking with people on the street. We asked what you thought about this. The first writer said, the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office is actively working with the Boys and Girls Club, plus other organizations reaching out to young kids, teens, and adults. They are awesome, as is the Manatee County Sheriff's Office. Dan Rice wrote, I grew up in Boston. There was always the cop on the beat. We knew them by name and always respected them. I know things are different now. However, let's see if these programs have an impact. And Irene Toner writes, community policing is good as long as they don't become babysitters. I give them all the credit for finding ways to connect with the public. Always, always stand with our men and women in blue. If you want to comment on tonight's topic, go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/news@7. You can also watch past roundtables through Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. Thanks to our guests tonight, Ed, Mac, and John. A great discussion. Thank you all for being here.